Hey guys, Uwais here from BlueFX, and today we're going to be jumping into the brand new version of After Effects 2021, and we're going to be teaching you guys how to use it. If you're a complete beginner, fresh, new, you were just born yesterday, you don't understand anything about After Effects, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to use it in under 25 minutes. We're going to be jumping into the program, looking at the various different panels, an overview of what the software does, how to use the specific tools, all while actually using some assets from our guys over here at BlueFX to create an imaginary advert for a plant company, because plants are really cool, you know, they uplift your mood. And I am digressing, but we're going to be creating this final product which looks amazing, so I hope you guys stay tuned and enjoy this. Now, because the timer starts right now, let's jump into After Effects and get started. So here we are in After Effects 2021, and immediately when you open the program, this is what you'll see, a sort of welcome screen. But for now, we're not going to really worry about this because we want to dive straight into the, a new composition. So instead of worrying about this, let's just click the X over here, and immediately we're granted a screen of basically the standard format of After Effects. This is technically what you should see when you just open the program. Now in Premiere Pro, like in our Premiere Pro tutorial for beginners, we talked about the timeline. So After Effects has a similar timeline down here. I would recommend checking that video out, link on screen right now, as some of the jargon and some of the layout of the program does translate over here to After Effects. But the difference with After Effects is that you work in compositions, as you can see over here, new composition, instead of something called like in Premiere Pro, which is like a new timeline. And the reason that happens is because in After Effects we are composing, and composing means layering one thing on top of another in order to create one single image. And that's where most of VFX or sort of special effects and visual effects comes into play, when you're just layering things on top of one another. So let's do a quick overview of After Effects. So in general, over here we have the project tab. Now the project tab, similar to Premiere Pro, contains this little media bin over here which will list all of our files as we import them. We then also have the composition window here, which will effectively be our little window that shows us what's happening on the timeline down here, which is of course the timeline panel. Now the window over here essentially will allow us to play back whatever we are working on. We then have multiple tabs over here. The audio tab, which I'll just close once again, which shows us our audio bars. Now really here in After Effects, I'm really not going to be working with sound. Although you can use sound in After Effects, it's really not designed for that. It's more of a visual tool, and I would rather do all of my audio work, such as adding sound effects and music and things, in Premiere Pro. So let's collapse that for now. We then have a preview window. We then also have effects and presets, which is the main panel we're going to be working with. And then we also have, things for such as characters, paragraphs, and all the text tools and things, which I'll show you how to use a little bit later on. And then of course we have our little timeline panel down here, and all of our tools are up here. So let's get started with creating a brand new composition. So let's click the new composition button, and immediately we're granted a screen that says composition settings. So this is much like creating a new project in Premiere Pro, but here we're creating a new composition which will allow us to start editing. So I'm going to leave it as comp 1. The preset I'm going to be using, it is automatically selected HDTV, which is 1080p at 29 frames a second, although most of the footage that I use I shoot at 25 frames a second, so I'm going to choose this one over here, but feel free to play around and pick the ones that you do. So I shoot in 25. 1920 by 1080 is okay because it is 1080p footage. We leave everything else as it is. The duration is 30 seconds, and so this is a bit too short for me. The duration is essentially how long the comp will be, and so for here I'm gonna make that about maybe, let's say, 1 minute. Okay, let's click OK. And immediately a brand new comp has been created. As you can see, the composition, just like the sequence in Premiere Pro, has popped up here in our little project tab or media bin, and all of our tools have become available for us to use. So the first thing we want to do obviously is import some media so that we can get started. So let's double click inside of the media bin, which will open up a little explorer for us to start, exploring to find something to edit with. So in this case, what I'm going to be using is the BlueFX Business Explainer package, because it has a lot of different icons and emoji type things and little animations that you can use to fully build out your video, whether you're talking about, business analytics, or you're talking about, I don't know, video editing, anything that you need, it will be in this pack. And as you can see, it comes in GIFs, it comes in, or some people say GIFs, which I don't really understand. But anyways, it comes also in MOV as well as PNG, and you have an icons list, which shows you a full-on, description of everything, as well as a tutorial. So obviously we can't open the tutorial in After Effects as it is an internet shortcut, but essentially what I'm going to be using a few of these files. I like to use the MOV files, and as you can see, there's different categories. You have lines and shapes and plants and money currencies and things like that. So I'm going to be using some of these to create a basic explainer video. Now we do have a bunch of other videos talking about how you can make explainer videos, especially in After Effects, and so this tutorial will be part and parcel about how to make an explainer video. Again, I'm sorry if I'm talking really fast because I only have 25 minutes to teach you guys as much as I can from my knowledge, which is also quite limited. I'm always learning. And so if you guys feel I'm going a bit too fast, maybe slow the video down, pause it, go back, and open up After Effects and follow along. So let's say, for example, you have a business that sells plants, for example, and we want to make a little animation that shows, I don't know, promoting your business. So let's go into the plants folder, and we have a bunch of plants here. So what we can do is actually hold Control, and we can select multiple ones in order to import them. So let's say we want to import this sunflower looking one over here, this little pot plant here, as well as this tree. Oh no, people don't really sell trees, do they? Okay, they sell trees. And this lollipop looking plant over here. So all I did was hold Control on my keyboard, or it'll be Command on an Apple, a Mac, and then you would click all of the ones you want to import, and then we can click Import, and boom, all of our files have now been imported into the project tab. Again, if you're interested in the BlueFX Explainer Pack, Business Explainer Pack, you can see it in the description down below, as well as linked on screen. We also have a bunch of free assets, which I will talk about a little bit later. So in order to get started, what we have right now is black over here, but essentially this isn't fully black. It's just appearing to us as black. What it actually is checkered, which means that it has no background at all. And the way I revealed this by clicking this checkered box over here to toggle the transparency grid. So essentially, if I were to render out my video in the proper file format that supports a transparent background, there would be nothing here except whatever I add on top of it. But in this case, we don't really want that, because we want to create a video that has a background in order to advertise our little plant business here, for example. Well, the easiest way to do that is to head up to Layer, then click on New, and by the way, make sure that you have your timeline comp selected, as you see is the blue little rectangle over here, because if I select this and I go to Layer, I won't be able to do anything. So select your timeline, go up to Layer, click on New, and then we click on Solid. Essentially what this does is it creates a blank solid, almost like a blank canvas for us to work on. So in this case, I want to make it black because we're going to be adding some effects to it, but you can make it whatever color you want. I'm choosing black because it gives me a good canvas to work on, although it doesn't really matter. But if you do want a solid color, feel free to pick whatever you want. So I'll click on black, and we'll just name this, let's say maybe BG for background. Then we'll leave everything the same, as After Effects will automatically use all of our comp settings to create this, and we click OK. Now it may seem as nothing has changed, but if I toggle the transparency grid on and off, you can see there's no longer that checkered appearance appearing, because there's no transparency, because this blank comp, or this background that we've created, is covering the transparency, and it's providing a background for us. So let's say, for example, we want to start editing on this thing. We have a couple of tools over here that we can use. The first one obviously is our selection tool, which allows us to move things around. Let's go to edit and undo that. Then that's kind of think of that as just like in Premiere Pro, your standard mouse cursor. We then have the hand tool. Now the reason the handy boy, as I like to call him, is actually to move the entire comp around. So this doesn't affect the positional values of any of these assets, unlike the cursor tool. But what it does is allow you to move around. The reason you want to do this is because if I zoom in by using the scroll wheel on my mouse, or using the selections over here, because I want to see a specific detail, I can't really move around here except if I have the hand tool, because if I have the selection tool, I'll be actually moving this background layer. So I use the hand tool and I can move around. Obviously you can't really see it because everything's black, but later on when I'm using these tools, remember this moment. If you want to reset, you just go to the percentage and click fit up to 100, and it resets it. I don't want you to worry about anything else except the text tool, which just like in Premiere Pro, you drag and click to create a text box, edit, undo. We also have the masking tool, which you can use to mask things around, although masking is a bit of an advanced technique or intermediate technique. And if you want to know more about masking, we can definitely create a part 2 to this video. Just let us know down below. And that's all I really want you to worry about right now, because this is obviously a beginner tutorial, and my main aim in creating this little advert for our plant business, our fictional plant business, is to show you guys how to use the media panel, how to use the effect controls, how to use a couple of effects, as well as add some text. So let's move on. Obviously, I don't want this background to be standard and black because that's kind of boring. So let's go to our effects and presets over here, and we'll see if there's any gradient effects for us to use. So we have a 4-color gradient, we have a gradient ramp, so let's see what these do. So let's click on gradient ramp. Okay, that seems interesting. Let's turn that off for now. Over here you can toggle the on and off, and let's add the 4-color gradient. Okay, also interesting, although 4 may be a bit too much. So with it selected, I'm just going to hit the delete key on my keyboard and get rid of that. We'll then turn the gradient ramp back on by clicking this button over here, the effects button. And now we have a little gradient. Automatically, this background is looking a lot more involved, although the colors are a bit bland. So here in the effects controls panel over here, which After Effects has conveniently and automatically opened for me, we have the controls of this actual effect. Now again, if you go to the effects panel, there's dozens and hundreds of effects in here, not even dozens, hundreds of effects that you can just add onto your clip or your background image and play around with to see what it actually does. So in this case, our gradient ramp, it's giving us a start color as well as an end color. So the start color is black, and as you can see over here on the top, it's black, and the end color is white, and as you can see here, it's fading into white. So plants are green, so why don't we make this background a nice darkish green so that our light green plants will pop on it. That's just my thinking. So the start color, I want to maybe change to a green, so let's make it a nice darkish green, and maybe I want the end color to fade into black. Okay, not looking that great. Let's make it a bit lighter over there, and then we can also change where this gradient ends. So you see, if I'm selecting this and I'm moving it around, I'm moving the entire thing, which is not ideal, because if we now render this out, we're going to have this ugly black bar over here. So let's go to edit and click undo, and undo once again. You can also press Ctrl Z on your keyboard, or Z if you're American, to change that value. But with this effect, as you can see, and I'm just zooming in using the scrolling wheel, and let me just use the handy boy tool, as I like to call him, and move down. We actually have this little tool over here. Where is it now? Let's select the effect. Oops. Using the select tool to select the effect. We have this little tool over here. And if we move this around, we're actually moving where the gradient ends. So let's go to fit up to 100. And essentially, we can move where this gradient goes with this tool. We can also use the one right at the start to change that. So let's move the one up here a bit up, and let's move this one down, so we have a bit of a nice gentle gradient. We can also add blend with original, but I'm gonna leave that for now. And look, I'm not gonna really go into detail here with this effect, but I'm just showing you a basic understanding. So for me, I like to go into a radial ramp, which adds a lot more. It's more of like a radial thing. It's like a circle shape. Let's change the ramp scatter. Can change it up to about maybe 20. Just fades it nicely. And let's say this is a background that we're going to be using. In fact, let me make this just a little bit brighter. Alright, now we're ready to start editing. So let's say this ad, I want to advertise some of my plants. So let us click this plant over here, and let's drag him into the timeline. And we have a lovely little animation showing up, pre-animated for you, business explainer pack. It's one of my favorites. I love it to bits. I use it in almost everything that I'm making nowadays. So let's play it back. Boom, that's a really cool animation. The problem is we don't want it this big, and we don't want it smack bang in the middle. So here's the tricky part. Actually not really tricky, but different. Unlike Premiere Pro, you don't really edit a clip's size and position in the controls panel. Instead, what you would use is this little drop down arrow over here. We drop it down, and then we'll find the transform properties. Here we have the anchor point, position, scale, rotation, opacity. all the basic things we see in Premiere Pro, except it's found in the timeline. But I'll give you guys a neat little hack in order to do this really quickly. If you have a clip selected, instead of having to drop down and then go to transform and all that stuff, just select the clip and then click the first letter of whatever you want to do. Now this is different for certain things, but let's say I want to alter the scale. I'll just hit S on my keyboard and boom, the scale property appears. This is something that I wish every other editing program would, adopt or maybe even steal, like HitFilm. I wish they would use this to make things so much more quicker and faster, because this really is a cool feature. So let's scale it down and let's put it over here in the corner right there. And obviously we can adjust the position by just moving it around with the select tool, or we can just conveniently hit P and then we can change the position, but I like to just use the select tool. We'll then move it over there, and we can keep in mind what our scale is. It's at 45. All right, let's then go back to our project tab, and we can select the next plant and bring it in. So this is a cool little pot plant looking thing. Let's hit S with it selected and also make it 45. We'll then position it over our one over here, just so I have some reference, so I can keep it in a straight line. Let's hit P, and then let's just bring it straight down to make it over here. Then let's bring in our next plant, and we'll do exactly the same thing. We'll make sure it's selected. We'll press S for scale, hit it to 45%. We'll then put it right over our one over here, so I have it in line. The reason I'm doing this is if I line it up here, then I press P and I use the position controls to move it, I'm keeping it in that same line. We'll then put it over here, and then let's drag our final one in, hit S, set it to 45%, drag it over our guy over here, line it up nicely, just roughly, press P, and then we'll drag him all the way up, okay, nice and slow I guess, to the top over here. We can also check that it's just in line with our guy here, if it would move faster for me. This is the struggles, guys, this is the struggles. Okay, it is roughly in line. Let's press let's press undo, 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 and there we have it over there. Right, so we have all our four corners over here, and basically I'm just making this up as I go along, but if we play the start, we have a bunch of little animations popping up. We can even stagger them if we want a little bit, so that they appear like this. Maybe a little bit more. When I'm staggering them, I'm essentially just moving them along so they take place at a different time. And then let's see how this goes. Okay, maybe a little bit less. See, I'm just playing around, just so they start at different times. Perfect. Now in the middle, what I want to do is have the name of our business, for example. So how would we do that? Well, if you have a logo, you could have it over here, but I don't have a logo right now since this is a fictional business that I made up about maybe 10 minutes ago. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the text tool. So over here in our toolbar over here, we'll click the text tool, and then just like in Premiere Pro, we drag a rectangle wherever we want to type our text. So this looks good over here. We'll then select in the middle, and obviously we can start typing. So let's say the name of our business will be, what's a good name? What is a good? I'm usually very good at making up business names or like short film names, but in this case I am stunting, so let's call it, I don't know, Perfect Plants, maybe. Perfect Plants. Perfect Plants. There we go. Let's hit Control A to select that text, or we can just, select it the old-fashioned way. And then over here, using this property here, we can just increase the size of that text. This font, Times New Roman, is like the most boring font ever. So let's go in over here and we can just, find a nice font. We can even favorite fonts so that they appear, on top or in our little filter tab, which is really cool. So let's click on Trade Gothic. Boring as well. Let's click on Trajan Pro. Now that's looking a bit better, but I want something a little curly whirly. So over here we can see some curly whirly fonts. Walter Croft. Oh, that's actually my Disney font. Don't ask me why I have a Disney font, but I love it. Perfect Plants, Yellowtail, lovely font. Let's increase the size once again, and then using the position or the selection tool, we can grab its center point and we can add it in the middle over here. Now, let's say we want this text to stand out just a little bit more. What we can do is go into the effects and we can type in over here drop shadow, one of my favorite effects. We'll click the drop shadow effect, click, hold, and drag onto our effect, and automatically it's added this little drop shadow over here. So we can obviously alter the opacity of that. We can make the distance a bit wider. Let's make it about maybe 7. Yeah, 7's good. The softness, I want to click it, I want to have it nice and harsh because I like that look. Let's go back to 100. And you can see without it, it looks like this. Let's turn it off. And with it, it looks like this. So that's a really cool look as well. Again, guys, I'm just showing you the power of After Effects. Now let's say we want to animate this text. So let's go to the start of our comp. Let's wait till, and by the way, I'm clicking spacebar to play through, but obviously if you want to have the controls, all you need to do is go over here to preview and you can, press play here and go frame by frame. So let's find the point where our plants stop animating. Boom, over here. So let's say just before that, I want to animate my text to start popping in. So I'll click the text. Let's zoom in over here using the zoom tool, and I'll trim the text to start at this point. We'll then hit S on the keyboard, and then using the keyframing properties, which essentially allows us to add a point and then animate it to a different point, we'll click on the stopwatch and we'll select this to 0. We'll then use the frame by frame buttons over here to go forward 5 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then over here, we'll select our new scale to be 100. So what this does essentially is it records the scale at one point and it records the scale at the next point. If you want more details about keyframing, I did cover a little bit of it in my Premiere Pro tutorial, and I will cover more of it in an intermediate tutorial if you guys do request that and if you are interested. So if we go back and we play through it, we now have our text animating. We can also turn on the motion blur property over here. Let's select motion blur to give it a bit of blur, and it'll look like this. As you can see, it's now got a bit of blur. Also, what I don't like is, as you can see, this is troubleshooting. If we do it, it's actually scaling the text, not from the center, but actually from this little point over here, because this is what we call the anchor point. It's scaling it from that point upwards, but that point isn't in the center. Now, After Effects has this really cool tool built in that I wish, also another thing that I wish that other companies or software packages would use, and it's called the pan behind tool. If we click this, we can then move this anchor point to be in the center, and you can see how the motion blur changes as I do that. And this is really cool, guys. When I press play now, it now animates from the center of the text. So I know this is a lot of information to digest. I understand that. I know there's going to be a bunch of comments saying, why are you going so fast? But I only have 25 minutes to do this. So that's just a rough overview of After Effects. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you do find it difficult, catching up to this, replay it a few times, comment down below. Our whole team will be there to actually help you guys. Email us, definitely check out some of our products in the description below, especially the Business Explainer Pack, my favorite one, where I got these plant animations from. And yeah, if you want to see more videos like this, let us know down below. But back to real life always. And that's how you use After Effects 2021 to do composites, start making VFX and add layers and all sorts of little things, making lower thirds, things like that. Completely fresh if you're a beginner. I'm fumbling over my words, as I do in every video. Have you noticed? I always do that. But if you guys are lazy and you want to use some higher quality templates, especially for After Effects, we have a bunch of templates over on the Blue Effects store. For lower thirds, we have templates for explainer videos that we've talked about before, and all sorts of things that's fun and cool and new and very much professional looking and sleek and shiny, things that takes experience to do that. Some of the guys on the team, I'm not involved in this, but some of the guys and girls on the team are very good at doing, using After Effects, years experience making these templates. And so if you want to have a bit of a shortcut to make something look really good, check out those templates on the Blue Effects store. The link is on screen right now, as well as it's always going to be linked in the description. Follow us on our social media accounts as well as on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe down below. It's completely free and you'll be notified about every video we post, especially if you turn on the notification bell and like this video. So hope you guys have enjoyed it. Share it with your friends, with your mates, and yeah, come back next time and leave a comment down below. We're always interested to engage with you guys over there. Drop us an email and let's be friends. Let's be friends. Seriously, I need them. Hope you guys have enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.